Thank you very much for staying with us, Mapito Sividi.
Yes, Benjamin Akakpo.
We're about to dig into the papers, right?
Yes, we are. And yesterday you had a very interesting conversation.
How did you know I was about to go to that?
Because you always talk about yourself. So I expected it. So I wanted to beat you to your own game.
Are you suggesting I'm narcissistic?
Am I suggesting?
Hey, you've delivered some punchlines this morning. We should record them and play them back.
Please. Let's talk about your conversation yesterday. Would you like to share
So
some stuff?
mine and Winston's, of course, and it was quite an interesting bit. So those I interacted with, especially because the Zoom thing wasn't working from where I was. Ayim Dake, who is with the Ghana National Chamber of Commerce and Industry, he said quite some interesting things. One, there should be no additional burden of taxes in the 2023 budget. We shouldn't have that. Two, the e-levy as it stands now is a nuisance tax, according to him, and it must be reduced in terms of percentage to something below 1%.
Yeah.
That was what he felt. He felt 1D, 1F had failed because, I mean, we're talking about now exporting so much on the back of the president's last address.
Yeah.
Yet looking at our imports of 10.8 plus billion, it makes no sense. There's a cure, and 1D, 1F should have been that cure. You remember yesterday when Paul Grave was in the studio, he made mention of the fact that they had put up almost 200 of such industries. What has been the result of these industries?
Yeah.
So those were some of the major points made. And I think he also mentioned tellingly that in his lifetime, I mean, these times are some of the worst he's noted, and that in the last 30 years, this is the worst economic situation he has witnessed. So those were some of the thoughts. Kukwa, CEO of the Clay Group, also joined with similar thoughts, and especially on the taxes, that there should be no further imposition because she represents small business, and small businesses are bleeding.
They're really suffering, yeah.
So, I mean, those were some of the, in summary, some of the thoughts from those I interacted with.
In conclusion. All right, let's go into the papers, and joining us for the newspaper review is energy analyst, Mr. Kojo Poku. Mr. Kojo Poku, good morning. Mr. Poku, good morning.
Hi, good morning. How are you?
Fine, thank you.
Ben, I can see you always have a nice addition to your blue glasses.
Always, always, always. It is the way.
A way to brighten your studio.
Yes, please. So I darken it a bit. She brightens it a bit. I don't want to mention brands. I would have mentioned certain soft drinks. Wake kakra. Then.
Coca-Cola, kakra, Fanta, kakra.
You, Mr. Poku. Anyway, thank you so much for joining us. Mapito, would you like to start with the Ghanaian Times? Or maybe just before you get there, I'm sure you caught what I said that Ayim Dake had mentioned as we meditated on the pre-budget review. Did you catch them?
Yes, I did.
Do you have any very quick reactions to them?
Well, yeah. For me, I think you remember the bit that you said about the 1D, 1F not solving the export problem. You remember we discussed it the last time we spoke, where you said that the trade minister met the industry. And I said that the focus of the 1D, 1F should have been, as exactly what the gentleman you spoke to said. It was supposed to basically be a solution to a problem. We are just putting up industries that we don't know what it's solving. So if somebody's going to put up an industry, it was supposed to solve some of these, our import problems. On taxes, I'll be very surprised if anybody wants to look at taxes in the 2023 budget. In terms of e-levy, I have always put up solutions to what can be done to make the e-levy much better, and I don't think it's being done. But I think, a reduction to maybe 1% for better compliance will be a good at this stage.
All right, so let's get into the Ghanaian Times, and the big story there on page 18 is that pre-tertiary teachers abandon classrooms nationwide, and there's a picture of the school there. It's empty. I was speaking to Anasabit yesterday, and he was telling me what's happening on the grounds. And I mean, the children were playing football, you know, it was just like a terrible, terrible sight, especially it's a Monday morning, we're starting a new week, and then you just see these children playing football. Some were trying to get home, but they were worried, like, who am I going to meet when I get to the house? Because mom and dad are at work. So we hope that problem will be solved. But let's go to page 16. And Ghana committed to increasing share of renewable energy. That is according to President Akufo-Addo, who has assured the global community of Ghana's full commitment to increasing the country's share of renewable energy in the energy mix. Speaking at the event organized by Bloomberg Philanthropies on the sidelines of COP 27, we'll continue to increase the share of renewable energy in our electricity generation mix, as well as explore the options of hydrogen gas and other clean energy sources to meet our energy needs. According to him, the president, energy transition has become a global responsibility for us all, especially in view of the impact of climate change and the global energy crisis brought forth by the Russian invasion of Ukraine. He continues to say that Ghana's position on energy transition is to continue the responsible exploitation of our natural resources for our development and transition at our own pace. The government of Ghana is mindful of the actions of the developed countries in relation to energy transition and their effects on us. Our two stories, Mr. Poku, any reactions to that? That Ghana is committed to increasing share of renewable energy, and that's according to the president. And the other one is that pre-tertiary teachers abandon classrooms nationwide.
Well, for me, I think I have been trying to get my head around the strike by the teachers, and I still don't seem to understand it. I honestly don't get the union and the strike they are on. I have tried to understand it, and like I said, I can't. You work for an organization. The CEO or the shareholders of that organization appoint a new CEO, and the workers decide to go on strike because they don't like the new CEO. Why? And look, the least I say about that, the better. I honestly don't get it. And I mean, the government should sit with them and probably issue this strike thing by the teachers is becoming a bit too much, because every time there is a school vacation, we are going to go into a new school year, we tend to see these strikes. When there's a strike for allowances, when there's a strike for certain things that is to your benefit, that I can understand. But when you are striking on the appointment of a new General Secretary of the Ghana Education Service, why is that? What ulterior motive do you have? Okay, let me quickly move on to the renewable.
Maybe before you move on, Kojopoku. So is it unthinkable? Is it completely unheard of? In other jurisdictions, I have seen same. You talk about the shareholders or stakeholders putting forward someone, but this is basically government, or this is basically, some proposition from the education circles. But must it sit well with the workers? That's the question. Who are going to work under this person? I mean, it could impact, if they don't agree with him, it could impact his tenure. Then again, we want to look at the fact that all through, there has always been a teacher in that position. So when they say that for the first time we're having something like this and we don't agree with it, are they completely wrong?
Yes. The fact that there's always been a teacher and the power that be feel that let's change things up, it doesn't make it is not. Look, you have a contract of work. Your contract of work gives you certain obligation to your employer. Okay, one of the contract of work that gives the obligation to your employer doesn't state that you can object to who the employer appoints as your boss. You could disagree with it, but the fact that you are striking and not going to work, for me, that's the bit I don't get. So if it has to be a teacher and the shareholder, the government feels that this time it has to be somebody else, what's your business? Do what you have to do. Let him do what he has to do. In the course of his work, if he's doing something that you don't agree with, then strike on those specific things the person wants to do. But to strike on his appointment, I've never heard that before. Now, like I said, let me move on to the renewable energy. I think that the renewable energy thing has been a talk shop. We have the president say that we are going to have a certain percentage of renewable energy in our energy mix by 2023. I can't remember the exact percentage, but we have done nothing in the energy space in the last 6 years to reach that goal that the president stated in 2017. Now, we had the energy transition. The Energy Transition Committee met. They had several meetings, did a cross-country retreats and all that. Then the Energy Transition document came out. Did you see the bill that accompanied the transition bill? Some billions of dollars that we need to achieve our energy transition. And I asked myself, that's not realistic. Okay, so for the energy transition to be realistic, we need to set ourselves goals that we can achieve as a nation. Going to COP27 and asking, like the president did the last time, that the developed nations should do their share of money that they promised did not give it. They're not going to give you any money. They don't have the money to give. Okay, so what we could do is think global and act local.
Yeah.
What does that mean? It means that the world is doing their bit to save the climate. What can Ghana do? By thinking global, we have the climate change in mind. Locally, what we could do is plant more trees. So we will be a net absorption of CO2.
We've had a tree planting drive. I mean, we've had, I think, back to back.
We should do more. It's the only cheapest thing we can do. We cannot go and start cutting fossil fuel. We cannot put taxes on fossil fuel companies. In Ghana, we can't afford that. The Germans and the Swedish and all those countries can afford all those talk. We can't afford it. We cannot do it. So the only cheapest thing we can do is to plant trees. That's the only thing.
Right.
All this talk of trying to change cars to compressed natural gas, all this talk of this, we can't afford it. Look, we can't even afford the basic things in this country, my brother. How do you expect me to now all of a sudden try and invest all these billions of dollars to change the way of life when nobody's giving us that money? There is carbon credits, okay? I have not seen any project in Ghana able to assess these carbon credits. So the developed nations talk the talk, but they don't follow up with the act after these meetings. Because I remember when the president spoke the last time, he mentioned in COP26, he mentioned that they promised us so much money that they were going to help us with the transition that we need to do. And that money never came. They don't intend to give you any money. They don't have the money to give you.
Right. Let me just re-echo. So from yesterday, as that meeting in Sharm el-Sheikh, happened, Antonio Guterres, the UN Secretary General, actually said this. I have just warned global leaders at COP27. We are on a highway to climate hell with our foot on the accelerator. Our planet is fast approaching tipping points that will make climate chaos irreversible. We need urgent climate action. That is what he said, and that is what he tweeted as well. I found it interesting, though, even as I get into the daily graphic. I don't need you to give a response on this, but our president, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, was meant to speak on 5 thematic areas, including what Ghana is doing in terms of our water bodies, oceans, and the rest. And looking at what Galamsey has done to our water bodies, even taking out the impact of climate change, I was just wondering, really, what we would have to say on that front. But anyway.
Well, a quick one. In Galamsey, there are 2 types of Galamsey going on in this country. There is the forest cutting Galamsey and then the mineral Galamsey. If you go and see in the Bono area and those forest reserve areas, what is happening in our forest, people cutting down our trees, that Galamsey, you weep. We are all concentrating on the mineral Galamsey, and then we think that is the bad.
No.
See what they're doing to our forest.
We've not lost track of that because, I mean, in recent times, the conversation has also, reared its head when it comes to what even happens, the vegetation, when they, in fact, some information we pick is that some of these people are cutting, corners both ways. So when they take off the timber, they actually process it for sale, okay? They benefit from that, and then they also, destroy the land with mining. So it's a 2-pronged affair. I agree with
you. Yep.
Let's get into the daily graphic now. Motorway deteriorates, patched portions rot away. For the life of me, Kojo, I don't know how many times we're going to say this. And Nkrumah gave us a concrete motorway. Yeah. That's the best you can find anywhere in the world. Concrete. And we decide to patch it with all kinds of other things. asphalt and all kinds. And it also makes the motorway very bumpy.
Yeah.
And so when you're going, you will just be hearing. I remember this time I was going and I fell and I realized no, it wasn't that my tire had any issue. It was just that each time you go after, you know that
there's some you
hear those sounds.
Yeah.
You may mistake it for. It will even make it difficult for you if you actually had a problem because you may think it's just the motorway. But despite sustained public outcry, the 19-kilometer Accra-Tema motorway continues to deteriorate and pose grave danger to motorists. 2 years after the Daily Graphic began to highlight the deteriorating state of the 56-year-old motorway, potholes, bitumen patches, erosion, and hardened lumps from spilled concrete are still posing a danger and discomfort to drivers and passengers who commute on it on a daily basis. Now, a month-long monitoring by the Daily Graphic as a follow-up to similar exercises in the past revealed that the situation had only become worse. On 4 occasions, while monitoring activities on the motorway for this story series, the Daily Graphic came across vehicular accidents, just monitoring, one of which resulted in injuries and the victims rushed to hospital. Meanwhile, the team observed that the National Road Safety Authority had installed a solar-powered electronic radar speed sign on the motorway. The speed sign was installed to make drivers aware of the level of their speed as they drove to help them to keep the required speed on the motorway. I saw a photo of that in one of the papers or on social media in recent times. But patching concrete with bitumen and all of that, what's your take, Kojo? Quick one there.
It's sad. It's very sad. 60 years ago, somebody built a road, put iron rods in the bottom part and put concrete on top. That road served us well for well over 50 years. In the last 10 years, you have seen that the lazy approach to solving that problem. Some time back, you see that when there was a patch, they will cut it and they will put the iron rods in but they stopped it. And I've seen that they are trying to use bitumen. As a hot country, bitumen is not for us. What we are supposed to have on our roads, if we had kept it up from day one, is that all our roads are supposed to be concrete. Because what you have in bitumen is just basically rubber and aggregate. So when it's hot, the bitumen melts. And when you have vehicular traffic on the road, the melting, that's why sometimes you see an asphalt, but it's bent or made in some funny shapes on the road. Because it's not the right thing to use in a hot climate, especially when temperatures show up against a certain degrees Celsius. So it's sad what they are doing to the motorway. This brings us back to the initial concept of tolls. When there was a toll on the Tema motorway, the concept of toll on Tema motorway was that you collect a toll to fix that road the toll is on. A toll was not supposed to be collected, put in the central fund and spent anyhow. No. When a road is tolled, it's being tolled because the road needs maintenance. And that toll being collected for the users of that money will be used to fix that road. We decided to get to a point as a nation where we started even collateralizing our toll receivables and using it for other things and collecting the toll and paying the bank UBA for that money. Okay? So we've lost, look, as a nation, we've really lost our way in a lot of ways. And one of the things that we can see today, the lazy approach to solutions, is what you see on the Tema motorway. Very sad, my brother.
Let's wrap with these stories. So, Akufo-Addo Sunak launched Forest and Climate Leaders Partnership. That story is on page 20. Of course, Rishi Sunak initially wasn't going to be at COP27 in Egypt, but there was a U-turn after public outcry. Be moderate in expenditure. Press be moderator to government. That's on page 16. And there's also regional minister backtracks on Ramsar site demolitions. Let's just go to page 16 very quickly. And just to touch on that bit about being moderate, the press be moderator, I want you to share with me what you think. So there are 322, that is our contingent to Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, Ghanaians and counting, who are there. People have raised the question about 322 Ghanaians for one climate change program. How many did other countries take there, for example? And these are things I would like to digest. And we've been told that some of these people funded themselves. What's the source? Who funded them? And all of a sudden, Ghanaians seem to have, most Ghanaians, because while all of us are concerned, very few do you see putting themselves out there campaigning. So all of a sudden, these people developed interest enough, maybe not to go to Qatar 2022, but to spend good money to go to Egypt and support the cause or whatever it is they're going to do. I don't know. I have my own questions. I don't know what you think about that situation. You can also add homeowners within the Sakumo on a Ramsar site heaved a sigh of relief for the Greater Accra Regional Council, Security Council, backs down on its earlier decision to demolish their buildings. Hundreds of buildings in the core zone were marked for demolition, but at a stakeholders meeting last Sunday, the regional minister, Henry Quartey, said, quote, "I want to say here and now that not a single completed building will be demolished." And so that is a backtrack, according to the Daily Graphic, on this bit. Quick reactions to this. We're done with the Daily Graphic.
You are saying that people are not, look, the journalists should keep an eye on the number of the contingents that government will sponsor to Qatar 2022. It would surprise you, amaze you, and shock you out of your boots. 322 to Sharm el-Sheikh, Egypt for climate change. My brother, this issue of traveling, anybody that knows me knows how it just basically puts me in a bad mood. As a nation, we travel too much. We heard Nanado in February or March tell us that there's a ban on travel unless express approval from the chief of staff. That never worked. In the energy sector that I monitor, there has been, in the last 6 months, Cape Town, Nigeria, Dubai, this, that. And it's not only one or two people going, my brother. Petroleum Commission, National Petroleum Authority, GMPC, the ministry, all the boss, everybody is going. And they travel first class. They don't travel economy. So one day, we should publish the cost to the nation, both state-owned enterprises and GOG, Government of Ghana budget, on travels within a year. We will all be shocked out of our boots. Pop that with what is going to happen in 2022, Qatar, that Ghana has qualified. Hey, you will see brand ambassadors and all those people also sponsored. What they are going to do, I have no idea. But we will get there. You will see the numbers that will come out and you will see the budget that Ghana will spend. In this state that we are in this state, that milk that cost 12 cedis is now 48 cedis. Today, somebody will spend government money, fly first class and go to Qatar.
Right.
Don't worry, we'll get there.
Ayo.
All right, so let's go to graphic business. Use ruthless approach to stabilize economy. That's according to the former IMF advisor, Dr. Emmanuel Kuma, who has called for a ruthless approach to expenditure cuts to help create breathing space for public finances and set in motion a credible process to economic recovery. He said that the spending cuts must be immediate and targeted at reducing the size of governments to create a lean, mean and efficient body that reflects the austerity that the economic challenges have imposed. Someone else who is calling for the government's size to be cut is Professor Peter Quarter on the 2023 budget. If you go to myjoynews.com, he suggested some fiscal measures to be included in the 2023 budget to help shore up revenue for the government. According to The Economist, the country's physical space is currently in a bad state, thus would need to innovate revenue measures to stabilize the economy. As we're getting ready for the budget reading, Mr. Poku, some are calling for a ruthless approach to stabilize the economy. What are you calling for?
Well, it's the only thing we have, the reduction in our expenditure. Our expenditure should only be about 5 to 10% above revenue. At most 15% above revenue. Shouldn't be more than 15% above revenue.
That reminds me, because just to interject briefly, the last time we put forward a budget, it had to be slightly revised, but we were looking at 100.05 billion in revenue, yet our expenses or expenditure was standing at around 137 billion Ghana cedis. So you see where that is.
The last budget was 150 billion.
It was 137 initially.
No, it was
so
100.0 to 137.
Pardon me.
Say it again.
I'm saying 100.05 in terms of revenue, and then 137.
The 137 is the revised.
Yes.
Yes, but the initial was more than 137.
Okay, point made.
Okay, so what I'm saying is that even the 105 was phantom, was not realistic, because in the previous years you had only achieved 65 billion in terms of revenue. So there was no way you're going to collect 40 billion extra the following year. It wasn't possible. Okay, the highest we did that everybody popped champagne was 70 billion that we said, hey, we've done well because we've basically been able to go up. So our realistic ever collected revenue was 70 billion. Okay, so you coming in to say that you're going to do 105 was not realistic. It wasn't possible. You can't achieve it. So the realistic target of the previous year that we know of is 70 billion. Now, you can't come and say that you're going to do twice your revenue in expenditure. That is the problem. So today, it's not that you come and tell us that you do 105 and then I'm talking about 10 to 15% of the non-realistic revenue. No, your actuals. When you do budget, there is actuals, and in your actuals, there's projected and actuals. So you have your previous year budget. When you have your actuals, you don't look at the projected and do the next year budget based on projected, because your variance will show you up. What you do is you look at your actuals and now say that 70 billion is my actual. What my expenditure should be is 15% of my actuals. So in this case, it will be about 85, 90 billion at best being your expenditure in the subsequent year. So what we should have in 2023, if we're tighten our budget, is to look at trying to increase revenue. Because if you increase revenue, then if you benchmark your expenditure at 15% to your revenue,
right,
the more your revenue goes up, you have the space of another 15% based on your actuals, not the projection. And that is where we get it wrong. So yes, look, I don't expect anybody to try and increase taxes. We have room to collect more. There are the unbanked, there is the informal, there is a lot of space to be able to go and collect. People don't have the money. So I think it's the wrong time to do that anyway. But there are big corporations and big companies that have been stealing from us for a long time. All these rice importers, sugar importers, and all these big businesses have been stealing from us. Let's tighten those ones and get that right. Then looking at the budget, again, we talked about the contingency to Sharm el-Sheikh. We talked about contingency that will be going to Qatar. All these things should be scrapped. We are in dire situation, my brother. And I don't think that there should be more than 20 people from Ghana accompanying Black Star to go from government. If anything more than 20 is a problem.
I guess unless maybe they are funding themselves. And like I asked, what is the source? Because sometimes, they are funding themselves. And you find out that funding themselves actually turns out to be something else. But let's quickly look at the Finder newspaper and the New Crusading Guide very quickly. Ghana committed to increasing share of renewable energy. That's according to President Akufo-Addo. There's also Akufo-Addo's Sunak Launch Forest and Climate Leaders Partnership. I've touched on that. Access Bank builds capacity of SMEs to utilize digitalization. There's also GMA wants medical school in each of the 16 regions. That's something I would like you to react to. And then finally, so I'd like you to react to the GMA's call for a medical school in each of the 16 regions, and CD fall, rising cost, collapsing newspapers, over 600% price increase of some inputs since January. In fact, being Catholic, the Catholic standard, which hasn't increased in a long time, has now also moved up. The Daily Graphic has, the Ghanaian Times, the Times Corporation, everywhere prices are increasing. Quick reactions?
Well, I honestly don't see why we need a medical school in each region. It's not feasible. We can't afford it. I don't know if the GMA are going to build it themselves. They have money. They are professionals who say that they don't have the money to build it. Government don't have the money to build it either. So
all right. So quick interjection. They are saying it would not only afford many people in deprived communities the opportunity to pursue medicine, but help increase the number of doctors in the country and serve their communities, but would also help retain doctors in underserved regions. That is a reality. How do you react?
Well, I honestly don't get it. There are doctors, the same doctors who complain of standing. Look, there are problems. The doctors have priorities. They have better problems. They have bigger problems. Let's try and resolve those problems. I've always talked about quality of service. They are not paid well. Their allowances, their condition of service, those are the issues. Instead of trying to bring more people into the port under the circumstances, why don't we solve the problem in the port first? Okay, because doctors will complain about working conditions. Let's resolve that. Let's resolve the whole medical thing. than trying to build hospitals and bringing more people into that field when they are going to come and meet the same standards and not be happy with the standard. So let's look at improving the condition of service, their salaries, their allowances. Let them work better. Then if you are to expand these things and bring more people in, I will agree. But for me, I think for now, there are bigger problems in the health sector. That building hospitals in regions is not one of them. We, in the state that we are in, I don't think the man who said that has realized that we are in a dire situation. The other one of, what was the other one?
So it had to do with the CDs fall, rising cost, and the collapse of newspapers.
Well, newspapers, look, I love reading printing paper, but the point is that if they don't also put in news that will make people be educated and they keep publishing political news, okay? In the front pages, it's before journalists will set the stage and publish news and the politicians will run after it trying to basically react to it. Today, the print media follows the politicians and print what the politicians are doing, which is wrong. I have a friend who's an old journalist. He said, Kojo, in the past, we the journalists, we had more money than the politicians. So we printed what we want and we didn't care what they say. Today, most of the newspapers are finding it difficult to survive. So they are only trying to look at sensations. And I don't blame them because now we have social and digital media, which they are competing with. Okay, so look, it's sad that the print media is going through what it's going through, but I think they should also look within and evolve into a much better space to educate people so that they can be, if I'm buying something educative, I'll pay more. But if I look in the front pages and it's this person did this or this person did that, then people will just look away in terms of people don't really have the heart to read about politics these days.
All right. Just to wrap from my end, the New Crusading Guide. Chief warns encroachers on Akotoshi lands after court ruling. That's an interesting development because today, even in the news, we're talking about this place where some rituals have been performed to ban anyone who would want to get into galamsey on that land. But there's also Ghana committed to promoting renewable energy, President Akufo-Addo. And then Odike apologizes to Otumfuo over galamsey comment. Do you remember that
yes.
comment, infamous, so to speak, on Oyerpa FM? He has apologized. Last time I saw him, he was joining demonstrators on Saturday for the Kume Preku Reloaded. Quick reactions, and it's done from my end.
Well, yeah, it's good. He has a good relationship with the Menchia. LDK is not an ordinary citizen of Kumasi. He's a senior citizen of Kumasi. And I mean, if you are from Kumasi, you are from Kumasi. A Krura is a Krura. You can't go around thinking that you can live in Accra and not go back to Kumasi. Nobody can. I don't know if anybody can do that. That you said, oh, I'm from Kumasi, but I won't go there again. I'm going to fight with Menchia and come and live in Accra. It's not possible. I mean, there are so many things that will require you to go back to the lovely town of Kumasi. For me,
but the question is, should people be compelled to apologize over what comments when they feel rightly so, and if it is not insulting? To say that you've been banished and all of that, you can't even come to, I mean, based on what powers
there's culture and there's tradition. We have Ashantis, we have our tradition. Okay, and the traditions are very simply stipulated. You can make your comment, you can say all the things you want to say without having to go against our tradition. What he did was that he went against tradition. It wasn't what he said, it's going against tradition. Okay, Odike could have made his comment without referring to the stool. You can make your comment without referring to the stool.
Right. You
can't mention the stool. It's the stool. That's where the tradition is. It's very simple. Make your comment, leave the stool out of it. That's right. Simple. The other thing that you mentioned was what?
So, I mean, I just read out some other headlines. Chiefs warning encroachers about land after court ruling.
The ritual bit, I think, is very important. You know, back in the day, in the olden days, there were days set aside that Dabone Yonkunsu.
Right.
And those were things that were done in the olden days to help the environment breathe. So you go to the rivers and there's a day that's set aside that nobody goes, so that the environment will have a day to itself. Right? And all these things were said. Today, modern day, because of Christianity and all these things, people don't believe in these things. Oh, there's nothing there, I can go. And people are actually, before, You can't even go onto the riverside on certain days. How much more go into the river to start spoiling the river? Because we revere the rivers as gods. All these people don't believe in these things anymore. So I don't know what the rituals are going to do. The only things human beings believe these days is if somebody just dropped dead in front of them. If not, nobody will believe it.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Kojo Poku, and he's an energy analyst. He was joining us for the news.
One quick thing, Ben, before I let you guys go. There is some disturbing issues coming up in Kaswa. And I hear the district commander in Kaswa with the senior Breku magistrate. There's something I'm looking into. A friend of mine over the weekend went through a very bad situation in Kaswa, and the Kaswa district commander, I'm going to find and go there, and I'll brief you the next time we speak on what the development is. I've heard that there's something really bad going on there.
Well, it's good you're investigating, so let's do that, and then we'll see what we can, do about that situation moving forward. Thank you so much, Kojo Poku.
Thank you.
Up next, we have sports coming your way, and there's a whole lot to look forward to. Do stay.